I see the most common, which is sales is a numbers game. And to be very specific, they mean numbers by driving more activity.
If you can't close what you have, you need to do a root cause analysis as to why that is. Like, is that ICP? Is that because your reps, like there is a reason. People are coming in the funnel.
And you can't be thinking in months or years at that point. You actually need to be thinking like 3 to 5 years in advance.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bridge the Gap podcast, powered by Revenue Reimagined, and apparently my dog Cooper in the background. Today's guest is Marcus Chan, founder and CEO of Venli Consulting, Wall Street Journal best-selling author, and the creator of the Revenue Engine OS, which is a system designed to stop revenue leaks and drive predictable growth. He's led a $195 million sales organizations, been recognized as a top sales influencer by Salesforce, and has helped over 700 clients recover nearly $1 billion of hidden revenue. We're going to talk about systems versus heroics, what B2B leaders get wrong about scaling, and how to finally build revenue engines that don't crack under pressure. Marcus Chan, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, what's up? I'm pumped to be here. Thanks for having me on, gentlemen.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for joining. Hopefully my internet works this time. It did not work last time, and hopefully Adam stops coughing. So we'll see if those two things work, we can have a show.
Sounds good.
There's a mute button. I could cough as much as I want as long as I hit the mute button.
So let's kick this off with the $10 million leak. Like, where are most organizations leaking millions of dollars each year?
So obviously every org is a little bit different, but let's talk about the most common ones, right?
I like that.
So I think the first big common one is actually just, you'll see very simply, low win rates. And to be specific, win rates based off discoveries to actually close deals, not off proposal to close, right? So I think a big thing I see across the board, right? I'll give a great example. You know, working in this organization, they have 100 plus reps. They actually had reached out initially, say, "Hey, Marcus, listen, we got a great org, but we need more pipeline. Like, we're super worried about the future.
Don't we
need
all?
More pipeline. We just need like the team. Like, we need to book more meetings. We just need more qualified ops." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Let me do a deep. Let me look at your data first.
Yeah,
and look at everything
close
first."
rate?
Right? We go in. I look at the close rate, look at the win rate. It's like 8%.
So you can't close the ops you have, but let's give you more.
Right. So I'm like, how does that make sense to want to spend more money on ads, hire more BDRs, train them up more, get more book meetings, and not even close them back? And of course, obviously talking to the BDR leaders, they're all pissed because they're like, "Hey, my ops are getting qualified. No, they're not getting closed. The AEs don't follow up." So there's a huge leak just in that simple piece right there. That's probably number one. It was like, how effectively can we drive up the win rate, which often leads to, generally speaking, most organizations or most orgs, really poor discovery. So really poor discovery, really poor multi-threading, really poor executive engagement across the board. So that's like a big one for sure. That's right there, right? Another really common one, which is, it's hidden because most people don't realize it, is how poor and how ineffective most frontline sales leaders are. And it's shocking, right? And I'm talking about, like, these are large organizations, so there's multiple layers of leadership, right? Yeah. So it's not like the CEO just managing a group of like 10 reps. They have multiple layers, frontline leaders, directors, VPs, et cetera, right? And a lot of these frontline leaders, they're good people, okay? Some of them are maybe promoted from being a great rep into that role, or maybe some were former sales leaders other places. But the common theme for most of them is when they step in that frontline leadership role, whether it's at the current company or somewhere else, most of them were never taught and trained how to be an effective sales leader. So most of them basically become a better version of what they're already good at.
Yeah.
So if
you were a great seller, go manage a team.
That's it, 100%. So that is
wildly different skill
huge
set.
gap. I'll give you a really simple example. We're working with an organization. They do about $35 million a year. They're based in California, and they had wanted me to come train their sales organization. We did the same thing. I said, "Hold on, let's do a diagnosis first, take a look at everything," right? Good people, good everything else. The biggest thing was their sales leaders are just not effective in the role. So literally, we spent 90 days literally building out the playbook, training and developing their leaders, how to be what are the key priorities as a frontline sales leader. How do you hire, train, develop talent? How do you run weekly meetings? How do you run weekly one-on-ones? How do you coach and develop? How do you do call reviews? Like, things that essentially, for lack of better terms, called table stakes to be at least a basic leader, they weren't even doing, right? And they couldn't do it well. So that's all we focused on, right? Fast forward 90 days, they went from like 70% to target to 100% to target. We didn't even train the sales team. We didn't even touch their sales team. We just focused on pure sales leadership. So a lot of times these gaps are they're a result of leaders solving the wrong problem. They pick a symptom, they try to solve the symptom versus a core root cause.
Yeah.
And that causes the other issues on the road.
And I think this becomes a challenge even in our business. Like when people come to us, they're like, same thing. We need more top of funnel. We need better close rates. And then you start digging in. It's like, well, you actually don't even have the sales process that you're following. And it's not really implemented in HubSpot. And like when I pull the data, you told me your close rates were like, you said your velocity is like 90 days.
I think
but
what
it looks
you
like
meant
it's
to say is
360 days.
when you asked me to pull the data.
Yeah. So I'm like, Adam, pull the data and let me know. But that's the same thing. It's like, okay, but the real problem, 95% of the time isn't a real problem. That's like you said, it's a symptom of the problem. And it's like, now we have to uncover what the real problem is. And one of our biggest problems that we've seen is like, yes, sales leadership is a potential problem, but even the sales team that you have may not be, the sales team that you need. Then it's like, okay, now we may need to hire one or two. And then it's like, okay, where's your job description? They're like, what 100%. Job description? Or like, it's like 2 years old. And it's like, okay, where's your hiring scorecard? And it's like, okay, I don't have that. Okay, where's your onboarding documentation? And it's like this unraveling.
Onboarding.
Of like,
what's onboarding? We just hire them and go listen to some recorded calls.
That's it. Yeah.
Marcus, when you look at revenue leakage, and I agree with you with the audit and with the sales team, and certainly you don't need more top of funnel if you can't even close what you have. I actually think that's a huge takeaway for everyone listening, because everyone we talk to right now is like, I need more top of funnel. If you can't close what you have, you need to do a root cause analysis as to why that is. Like, is that ICP? Is that because your reps, like there is a reason people are coming in the funnel. So it might not be top of funnel. But once they get in the funnel, what's a bigger culprit in your mind? Is it that we're doing shitty discovery, or is it that we're doing shitty demos that are just feature shows? Where do you think that disconnect really starts with the leakage?
Well, it's interesting, right? So I would say 90% of the time it's going to be discovery, right? The discovery is just it's super ineffective, or they basically run a version of BANT as a discovery, right? And that's like, I mean, it's the wildest thing. I literally just listened to a call like yesterday. I'm like, literally the first question is like, hey, so to solve this problem, like, what's your budget to solve this problem?
But Marcus, do you have authority to make a decision?
I had someone ask that blown away. I'm like, this is like 5 minutes in a conversation. I'm like, oh my God, like this is horrific, right?
Yeah.
So that discovery is a big piece. And what I think is also really interesting is there's often a confusion between discovery versus qualification. And there's a big shift right there, right? So, for instance, BANT, it's actually pretty good from a qualification perspective, but as a discovery, not good. Like if you just ask those BANT questions, you're going to really piss off a lot of buyers, right? And I think it's really, really dangerous. Now, in some like like a med pick and medic, you can kind of blend it, right? If you do it right, if you do it like if you actually understand what medic is. It can be quite powerful if you do it right. But most of the time, people treat it like a transactional thing. Like we have to
ask the questions.
Exactly. So that discovery piece is one of the most important things. That's actually why, when you look at an organization, even if you try to self-diagnose, right? You get the data right. Look at all your data, try to look objectively. But then you should also take a look at like, hey, call recordings. Let me take a look at my reps' call recordings and see what are we seeing on the discovery calls, the demos. Because you'll see common patterns, right? Things that may not show up necessarily in the CRM, in that data, but show up right inside there. And that can be very, very telling. In fact, more telling sometimes than what you actually see in the CRM.
Yeah, 100%. I think that discovery is a process that needs to be done right. Discovery is not one phone call. And what you just said, discovery is not qualification.
That's right.
Neither is BANT, by the way. BANT is garbage. I will die on this hill. I have this conversation with people on a daily basis. I think, Dale, our last 2 clients use BANT, and I think it was the very first thing I said to them is, okay, first thing we're doing is getting rid of this because it doesn't work. So all great call outs. Let's go a little bit deeper into systems over heroics. So you are huge into frameworks, right? Like frameworks are really important. Why is it that top performers typically convert, call it 2, 3, if not 4x better? And how do you properly use frameworks to replicate that across the team? Because I think frameworks are very different than scripts. And I think that's where I see a lot of people get screwed up.
Yeah. So let's define some terms, right? Because I think a lot of times people define things incorrectly. So people say,
or maybe it's not incorrectly. Maybe it's just the way to define it, and it's
Correct.
not right or wrong. But it's like
That's exactly
we all need a common language.
Great point. So just to make sure we have the same common language, let's define together for those who are
Dale,
listening.
Don't correct the guest.
So, hey, you know what? I like it. I'm game with it, right? So a script we'll call is read this verbatim. If you say these exact things, you'll get an outcome. Okay. A framework is a mental model for thinking. It helps you think through specific situations. You have a guide to follow along. So, for example, like a framework I teach is the powerful framework for discovery. And that essentially means you want to cover essentially 8 core things in a discovery process. Sure. And it's not necessarily exactly in that order because
I was going to say, does it have to be Marcus? How many reps do you have? Marcus, when do you hire them? Marcus, what's the onboarding?
Exactly. So that would not work, right? Because that's not how humans work. You can't converse that way. But when I look at a framework, it's like an 8-lane freeway. We're all head towards the same direction. Because we understand that where we're going, traffic, though, who knows what's going to happen? There could be different cars, accidents in a row. So you might speed up, slow down, change lanes. And a framework is what allows you that flexibility to adjust based off the process. So when I go back into, like, say, the discovery framework powerful, you want to cover P for pain, O, opportunity costs, W, wants, needs, desires, E, executive level influence, R, resources, F, fear, failure, U, unequivocal trust, L, little things. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean a rep's going to go like, okay, P, O, W. That's not how it works. But they're going to adjust throughout the process. And sometimes
how do you tee that up so that they understand that? Because most of the time they do, they get this Google Doc and it's, oh shit, I got to go through this in this exact order.
You're exactly right. So the first step is you teach them the framework, right? So I imagine it's kind of like, if you're learning how to play piano or guitar or any sport to begin with, you first learn the fundamentals. When you start to learn the fundamentals, once you start to master the fundamentals, it's far easier to adjust and adapt over time. So when you look at, say, a sales process, like a discovery, we know there's certain things that are almost always going to be the same, right? From how you start the call, be roughly the same for the most part, right? You can have the center, which has a lot of variability, okay? And then you have the end where you're hopefully just setting next steps that are really clear. So you get kind of the front and the end, all kind of more controllable. Everything in the middle, who knows, right? So if we can teach a rep a framework, hey, here's the framework of how you run a sales call. Here's kind of how you start an intro call. You said upfront agenda, what do you want to call it, right? And then here's kind of your leading question. So you can teach leading questions to start with, but they teach other frameworks within it so they can kind of go through. So I would teach, say, powerful, but then I'll teach them another sub-framework called RIM. What's the relevance? What's the impact? What's the motive? So what happens when you have different frameworks based off the response of somebody, you can kind of jump around. Right.
Yeah.
But really,
the problem isn't the first answer. Like, you're going to get the first answer. The problem is, like, when you get the decision tree of, like, shit, that wasn't what I was expecting to have happen.
Correct.
Like, right. Where's the string to pull?
You mean they didn't give me the answer that I thought, and I can't go down the script because they didn't say, yes, it's this problem?
That's right. That's why it's always sad when you see something on, like, LinkedIn where they map out the perfect Figma tree, right? You're like, oh, if I run the exact process this way, they'll close everything. Nah, not complex.
It's the N8N workflow that has 500 steps that I built for you, and I'm giving it away for free if you just comment workflow.
Right. I mean, it's just that's just
perfect.
It's great for marketing and that top funnel leads, but that's all it's really good for, right?
People buy from people. That's why companies who invest in meaningful connections win. The best part? Gifting doesn't have to be expensive to drive results. Just thoughtful. Sendoso's intelligent gifting platform is designed to boost personalized engagement throughout the entire sales process. Trust me, I led sales for a Sendoso competitor, and I can tell you, no one does gifting better than Sendoso. If you're looking for a proven way to win and retain more customers, visit sendoso.com.
So what happens is you teach these frameworks and you give them a guide, right? Now, here's the thing. When you teach a framework, I think the next big mistake a lot of leaders make is Okay, new hire, you just touch his framework. Yep. Let me have you go practice on some prospects now. What a horrible idea. Like,
right.
The practice should be literally with a leader who knows the framework and can be a tough prospect, right? They should actually be real plays, not role plays. These should be tough, challenging situations. They're just like what they're going to encounter. In fact, probably harder. So when they're in front of a real prospect, it's a little bit easier, right? So that's what, that goes into like the coaching teaching methodology, where it's like you teach the framework and you teach on how it's supposed to be done, but then you actually need to go through it with them. So that's that they get that repetition built in multiple times, and they get more and more comfortable.
That's the problem. Like you teach something, like most training courses or people that train out there, like you train it and then you go away and then it's like, it's never reinforced. It's put on the shelf.
That's right.
Like even us, we'll do some training and then like we do a lot of spiced and then, we'll come back and we'll be like, okay, like what's the situation? What's the pain? What's the impact? And it's like, nothing is done. It's like they forget, they have amnesia. They don't know how to do it. So
you're exactly
totally
right. They usually forget, right? And that's where it's like, and depending on the tenure of the rep, you have to adjust how you coach and teach. I think it's really, really big. You know, you have someone who has been trained in different methodology, they have a deeper understanding. They can pick up spice a little bit easier, right? And you may not have to do much outside to kind of teach them. They kind of run with it. A new hire who's never thought about it before, it might be like, okay, here is the call prep sheet that literally has spice written out that you need to fill out. Like, this is your requirement, okay? Like, then you need to take it and you need to like put it inside your HubSpot. You know, like we have fields that have spice in this. You need to fill out. Like, this is your requirement, right? So you have to kind of create some of these training habits, is not to be a stickler, but it's to help build a really good habit so they start thinking this way, and it becomes a habit versus like this like one-off thing.
So when you look at training programs, whether that be your training program, whether that be Winning by Design, no matter what it is, how do you differentiate a training program versus a true systematized sales engine?
Yeah, I think great question. So I think there's a couple things, right? So number one, I always think about like, how does the engagement even start? So a lot of times, and actually, in fact, my experience for training companies was like, hey, we specialize in teaching XYZ thing. You know, we'll come do a couple workshops for you. You'll be X amount. That's kind of like their out-of-pocket, very scalable offer, right? That's your kind of your prototypical training program, okay? There's no context. There's no adjustment. There's nothing that's designed to help the organization. But then I look at sales transformation programs. Things actually truly transform an organization for the long term, right? And when I look at it, those organizations run their business model differently. They actually run a far more like a big, like, you know, a Bain, McKinsey organization, right? And what do those companies do? They always start off with a diagnostic or an audit first. Always. Why?
We learned this one the hard way.
Yeah. So because then you know you're not getting something like you're not getting a cookie cutter solve. You're actually figuring out, hey, what's the core problem? And I found, generally speaking, there's a lot of power and clarity. Because like I mentioned, most people solve the wrong problem and they throw money at the wrong symptoms, if you will. Right.
That's why you got to do the audit in the beginning. Like, what you think is the problem is not really the problem.
100%. Like, I mean, this is even my own personal life. We all have this issue, right? And I was talking to, you know, Adam before this, but you're like, you know, like I was having like, you know, like lower back pain and knee pain, you know, and first I was like, it's probably because of like, I need to do more stretches. I'm doing more stretching. I'm foam rolling. I'm getting massages. Then my buddy's like, oh, I think it's because you're a flat foot. So then I got, you know, better shoes and like, you know, cushioning, and that got better. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? It's actually a specialist is like, hey, you actually have terrible mobility. You sit too much. Oh, and now I've been doing mobility work. Where my pain go? It's gone now, right? As a result, right? Because I'm solving a core root problem versus these symptoms, right? So we all kind of fall into it. So going back to what I mentioned, like the first step is like that organization will do a deep dive diagnostic first. That's really key. So they can really uncover what are the true root causes. And it's not about getting like a fancy 100-page report back. It's like, hey, like just tell me like, what's a 1-pager? What's a 2-pager? What are the biggest problems right now? Like, what's the 20% that will drive the biggest impact? Right.
Yep.
And then the next phase of the engagement is designed around solving that specific thing.
Yep.
That's really, really key. right?
100%.
And then that phase could be, I mean, if it's gonna be, say for example, like maybe there's no methodology in place, they need to be trained on methodology, right? That might be what the next phase is, but it can't be like also like 1 or 2 workshops. It generally needs to be like a longer term engagement. So there's reinforcement and teaching. And then on top of that, there needs to be some level of training the trainer. Because even that company, like for example, like I'm not going to be that company forever, right? It's just an engagement. So we'll actually work directly with their sales leaders to make sure there's reinforcement session with them. So they have scorecards and tools, and they know how to actually run one-on-ones and do the things that actually help kind of reinforce these key things that are being taught in the sessions or workshops of the reps. And it's in over multiple weeks as well, right? And then on top of that, if it's a real organization, then they're also building long-term assets as well. So sometimes it's maybe helping them rebuild out their HubSpot or their Salesforce, right? So things align to what's being taught, or it could be helping them build out playbooks as a part of it, right? And then depending, of course, the engagement, right? And maybe it's that same engagement or next one. What are other core problems that have to get solved? So, for example, for one of our clients, we started off with the same thing. We do the audit first, then we focused on the first phase was training their sales leaders, right? And then the next phase now, because now the team is performing, is we actually help them build out their performance management process, right? Because they didn't know how to it was kind of like fire at will, if you will, because we're at will, but there was no real process. So building out an SOP, a procedure for performance management across the board, the multiple steps to protect the organization from risk, de-risk situations, to how the write-ups are actually going to look, to performance reviews and how that process should look as well. And then on top of that, we rebuilt their whole hiring process, the job description, their hiring, everything should align together across the board, right? And then of course also onboarding too. So what happens is when you partner with an organization, not only are they diagnosing the core problems, they have solves to build long-term transformation, and they're not just banded to teach, like, let me just teach them like challenger sales technique for a couple of weeks. It's solving core root problems that you can scale across the board beyond the partnership with the company.
And you have to iterate through it, right?
Imagine that. It's not treating the symptom, it's treating the root cause.
That's right.
Every single time.
100%.
And you have to iterate. Like when we tell customers, look, we're not going to get it right all the time either. Like in fact, probably, 25 to 40% of the time we'll get it wrong because we don't know your business as well as you do. We're guessing on some of the things, we're iterating through them, but that's why your engagement can't be a month. Correct. Or it can't be a PowerPoint deck. Like you have to actually execute on the hypothesis, and then you need feedback from the company, you need feedback from the customer, you need feedback from the market. You put all this stuff back into the engine, and you're like, okay, here's the next iteration. Like we started at version 0.9, now we're at like 1.5, and then like you can iterate on it.
Because the business changes over time, right? So I'll give you an example, right? So we worked in an organization, and they were really good at transactional sale. So like 5K, 10K deals, really good. Yep. Like, overall as an org, the 25% close rate as an org, pretty good overall. When we looked at the data, they really struggle with basically anything bigger than that. Like, like 20K, just game over. I mean, it basically like feels like any mid-market deal or enterprise deal. I mean, pretty much they were like closing maybe 5% at best.
Yep.
Right. So we worked with them to build out and transform to the next level, right? And over the next over 6 months' time, they went from that 5 to 10K average deal size to $250,000. Okay, so pretty drastic. I mean, massive impact to the business overall, right? And they're because they're selling to the mid-market space, and they can have they can obviously do more with organizations of that size, right? Now, here's a really interesting part, and this is the evolution. Is like our engagement wraps up. They're still very happy clients. It's amazing, right? I was just talking to their sales VP like actually a couple weeks ago. Here's the next issue they run into, right? Because they haven't evolved from their whole process.
Yeah,
the deals got to be more complex. So now they're going for like $500,000 to $1 million plus deals, and they're like they can't run the same play anymore.
Nope.
So there's so much more complexity, right? So now we're looking to engage basically help evolve even more if they didn't want to do it on their own. But my point is, you don't have to work necessarily, someone like me or you guys. It's like whenever you are brought a deliverable of something, right? It can't be static. It still requires maintenance and evolution over time. That's just how it is. You buy a brand new car, you don't just drive it around and just hope it takes care of itself. you still need to maintain it. You got to check the oil if it's oil. If it's an electric car, you're checking the tires. You're making sure the vehicle is going to be maintained and evolve over time because where you are. Oh, you move cities? Hey, no problem. Is it ready for that city now? Okay. You have more miles on now? What are you doing now to make sure you're constantly involved in that process to make it better?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's so interesting what you were saying, because motions are different and people just think, and it could be even the people, like some people that sell transactional can't sell a mid-market, can't sell enterprise. And not only the playbook's got to change, but the mentality, there's like a lot of shifting.
Hiring profile.
Yeah. Everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's
everything.
Like
we talk a lot.
Lift.
Like I've done SMB, mid-market, and what I'll call like mid-enterprise. I am not the guy to go.
What the hell is that?
Like
that sounds like a
end.
disease.
It's like a medium.
That sounds like a disease.
It's a real thing. Look it up. But like, I'm not the guy to go have the 24-month sales cycle selling a $250 million deal. It's not my skill set. Could I learn it? Probably. But like, are you going to pop me in to do that? No. Conversely, like the guy who sells the 24-month, $250 million deal would blow his brains out if he had to go sell mid-market or SMB.
That's right.
They're wildly different profiles.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Cool. So you went from like $195 million org, just like this small little org, to like launching your own business.
Makes me a reminder, Dale. Appreciate that.
I bet you're a lot happier now. But what lessons did you learn in that organization going into like launching your own thing?
It's interesting, right? It was a big shift because I think I never want to start my own business, right? So,
really,
I never, because my parents were actually entrepreneurs and they had a restaurant and I grew up working in a restaurant. I'm like, this is a super hard way to make money. Like, I don't want to.
I mean, especially in a restaurant.
Yeah, I'm like, this is awful. This is what entrepreneurship is. This is terrible.
Well,
right?
the margins are like 3%, right? So it's like
it's horrible. Horrible.
Yeah.
So, like for me, I was like, oh man, I never wanted to do that, right? So, it was interesting because I would say learning how to like run large organizations over time taught me so much. Like it helped me so much, not just for my own business, but also for like my clients as well. And the things that I did not even realize, things like, because I ran into problems over time, I make shifts, right? Now, I have to put a little asterisk here because I would say as an employee, I always acted like an intrapreneur, meaning I acted like I was an entrepreneur running my own business in any role that I was in. So if I was a rep, I literally acted like a CEO of my own territory. So I would do my own thing. If I didn't have marketing, I built my own marketing pieces. Like I would do whatever it took.
Marketing loves that at a big company when you just build your own marketing.
They absolutely love it, right? So they absolutely love it, right? So, but like, I'll do all these things.
Got to get the deal closed, man.
Yeah, 100%. But I'll say the biggest lessons I took that really helped me like dramatically was actually a lot of leadership lessons, like scaling and running organizations. Because like the selling thing, it really doesn't change that much if you're selling for yourself or yourself for a company. You're still selling a sales process. But when I started to ascend through and I started running these problems over time, right? So for instance, like I think about the first jump, which is you go from selling to maybe managing a sales team. That was like hard and a big realization that like, oh man, like I'm not good at hiring, training, onboarding, all those things. So what do I have to do? Okay, I have to learn how to do those things. Okay, that also helped me with my clients now and also, for my own business as well. But then when I went to the next level, we're now managing managers and each of them have reps. So I go from having 20 direct reps reporting into me to now I have an org of 85 reps. I have 10 sales leaders, right? It's a big jump. And I'm like, oh man, like, and I started to realize like for the first piece was time horizon. So like time horizon wise, I would always thinking about, I count as a rep, I always think like almost like week to week, month to month. Okay. Maybe quarter to quarter if I was lucky. As a manager, I started thinking more like quarter to quarter, maybe like, year to year, if you will. I was thinking a little further in advance. But once I stepped into like managing like leaders, and I started to see like other data points. I'll get basically punched in the face with different things. So for instance, like I realized it would take me when I hired someone, it took about 157 days for them to produce their first deal. And I'm like, that's not good, especially when I have 10 teams. And then if you take a step back, not only that, it's for simple math, let's call it 100 reps. If 100 reps, if I know the market that I took over has 40% turnover, I need to hire 40 new reps that year.
Yep.
And I can't wait till the end of the year to do it. Plus, you add 157 day, ramp time, and you add in like if there's leadership turnover and all that stuff, this becomes a situation where I'm just not gonna hit my number. And you can't be thinking in months or years at that point. You actually need to be thinking like 3 to 5 years in advance.
Right.
Because I start to realize this is a lot. So literally, I'll have to start hiring yesterday for like a problem I'm going to deal with in like 12 to 24 months time.
Yep.
So the time horizon has to start to go way, way bigger. Then you add in your sales cycle, et cetera, right? Now and of course, increase quotas every year. Now, when you start thinking this way, you're like, okay, that's really interesting. So what are my core root issues then? And your core root issues actually change drastically when you look at a longer time horizon. Because now it wasn't about just hitting your number. It was like, how can I hit, like my 2026 number, my 2028 number, my 2030 number? Because you have to look so far in advance, right? So I have to start solving different problems. And because when you have a larger scope of time, you're like, okay, like, all right, like here's a core root issue. Like number one, I knew we had to hire, like when I took over that org, I'm like, we have a hiring profile issue. We're kind of hiring anybody with a pulse almost, it seems like. And that's why there's such high turnover. That was a big core issue, right? So how can we get that 100% aligned and fixed? The second thing was I'm like onboarding. Like onboarding was not like, there was kind of a corporate structure, but it was not great. Redesign the onboarding so people were closing their first deal in 4 weeks versus 6 months.
Yep.
So redesigning that completely, right? And then on top of that, like the other thing I didn't realize till later was like leadership development. I knew if I had 10 sales leaders, I have at least 20% turnover at the time. I'll have to hire 2 new sales leaders every year. So ideally pull from the ranks. Yeah. So that meant I need to have a better system in place for developing them so they're ready, because their ramp time was too long as well.
So many people don't look at the lead time to hire. Forget 100%. The ramp time, the lead time to hire. Like Correct. There's a platform out there that I will not name, but this is the only thing they did good. Like there's a lot of things they claim to do, but like it literally would look at how long it takes you to hire specific roles, the impact it would take on not just how long to hire, to source, to interview, and to ramp, and to tell you if you need $1 million this year, forget the fact that, okay, a rep has a 3-month ramp and it takes that long, but like it's going to take you 6 months to hire. MF, you need to post that role 3 months ago. Otherwise you have zero chance of hitting this number.
You're exactly right. That's where I got 157 days. That's exactly how it was. Because I worked at HR, I sourced the data. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that means like I opened the rec right now. No one's even applied yet, and I'm already 7 months behind. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, you're already behind.
So like, and I knew that already. So I'm like, okay, so we need to be thinking so much further in advance. So I'll have to look at the year trend plus what I expect my headcount to jump into, plus both in turnover. So I knew if I can solve some of these core root issues of improving hiring, onboarding, training, developing my leaders, having a development program for the reps, I can reduce the turnover down. So that's actually why in year one, we went from like 40% to 17% turnover as an org, right?
Wow.
So that was
nice.
That was massive because like that helped me, like, that gave me room to breathe, right? And then we kind of taper about 20%, right? I'll say, argue 17 is actually a little low because, that means you're also not coaching out people that probably need to be coached out as well, right? So there's a little bit of a side effect. So you have to have some turnover. I truly believe that. But you have to be thinking now in like years in advance to do that, which means you have to do the hard things today that you don't see any benefit from. Like that's unsexy, but like let me just sit down and basically redraw like how we hire people, the profile and the process to do that. Let me relook at the onboarding process. Let me relook at how we develop ours. That's boring. But
the most unsexy things 9 times out of 10 are what's going to move the business forward.
That's right.
Listen, I love being on sales calls with reps. I love closing deals. I love writing big comp checks.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't do the unsexy things, you're not going to get to do any of that because you're not going to have a team to make sales calls with.
100%. 100%. And that's where it's like you have to start to, and you can't solve all of them at once. You pick like the biggest burning fires and you start solving them, but you're looking that far in advance. And so when I made that jump over, that helped me love my business Like, so literally no joke. Like, September 19, 2019 was the day I started my business. So 9/19/19. And I literally whiteboarded 5 years in my 5-year plan. My offers, my structure, I built it all out. Right. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but identify what are my core constraints and let me tackle those constraints. And that's what I started working to solve those constraints. Now, again, they're hypotheses at the time, right? And sometimes they were right, sometimes they're wrong, but I put that in place. But then on top of that, what I really learned as well was, like, especially in corporate, like, you have a plan for the year and all these things, territory plan, capacity models, all that jazz. But, like, everyone's got a plan to get punched in the face. I think that's what Mike Tyson said, right? So I did all those things. You look far ahead, you built all the things out, but then I also inserted reflection points. So this allowed me to reflect at consistent times throughout the year to make pivots, right? So for instance, I actually had like a weekly injection in my calendar called executive review. I'll review certain things and KPIs and things and see, are we trending towards the right things? On a monthly basis, maybe very similar, quarterly as well. And then we would repivot the plan if we need to for the upcoming timeframes as well. So that was really critical, because sometimes we put together a plan and we run so hard to try to execute that plan, we don't realize the goalpost has moved or something has shifted in the market. You actually need to pivot, because now there's a bigger fire to put out.
Well,
I love that.
Said.
That's a lot of learning.
Well said. That is a lot of learning. We are at the time that we need to move more towards rapid fire. I feel like this should be a 60-minute episode, because that was a lot of learning and we could drill super deep. But we're going to go a little faster with some of the questions here. What kind of sales org wins in the next 3 to 5 years?
The one that can adapt the fastest. I mean, I think it's that simple.
I love it.
Right.
Love it.
What's one KPI sales leaders obsess over that doesn't matter as much as they think?
Oh, pipeline coverage.
What's one sales myth that you just wish would fucking die forever?
One sales myth, because there's many. Let me think. Man, because there's a lot of ones I absolutely hate. I'll pick the one I see the most common, which is sales is a numbers game. And to be very specific, they mean numbers by driving more activity.
Yep. Yeah. Make more calls. You'll close more deals.
That's right.
No. False.
Biggest misconception about top performers.
Good one.
They're hard to replicate.
Oh, I like that one.
If you had a framework, you could replicate them.
I'm just saying, if you start, I did my core common patterns and belief systems, and then you start building a hiring process around that, it starts to change how you actually build your org.
Yeah. Marcus, you can't be in sales. You can't be in consulting, but you still have to work. What are you going to go do tomorrow?
Restaurant. No,
do I need money? Hold on, do I need money? Does that matter?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you need money.
It can't be a passion. It can't be a passion thing, right? It's just
sure, passion thing, but it's still got to make you money. Maybe not the same quality of life you're living now, but it still has. You still have to be able to.
I can't be an entrepreneur, right? Can't be an entrepreneur.
No.
Oh, okay, all right. As strange as it might sound, I'd probably become like either a life coach or a fitness coach.
Okay.
Yeah. I still love coaching at the end of the day, and impacting people in a different way.
100%.
Last one: dream vacation destination.
Dream vacation destination. Oh, this is actually a good question, because we haven't been out of the country for a long time. Because my kids got a bunch of allergies. It's a whole thing to travel. But I would say it's probably I don't know dream destination by itself. But I want to visit like every country in Europe. Like, I've only been to Italy.
I love that.
Right. I've been in a bunch of places in Asia, which has been amazing. But I really have not been over in Europe that much outside of Italy. And I think there's a lot of obviously amazing culture and history there.
Yeah.
And of course, great food too. So I'd love to do that.
I love it.
Awesome.
I love it. Marcus Chan, thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you for the learning lessons. I highly recommend everyone not just listen to this once, and this is not a shameless plug. Download it. I don't care about the stats. Go back and listen to it again, because there was so much knowledge on how to effectively build and transform your sales team and revenue engine in this episode. You're not going to do it justice if you just listen through it one time. Marcus, thanks for joining, man.
Thank you, man.
Dope.